It is actually Tinga that said that, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. Avoid unhelpful insinuations. The honorable minority leader at no time mentioned the president. He probably is meaning Ichungu or somebody else. Let him continue with his argument.
Mr. Speaker, as usual, I will ignore the Honorable Soro. Mr. Speaker, going through this bill, you see an attempt to not only ridicule the hustlers or the poor Kenyans, but to actually kill them. Why do I say so? Mr. Speaker, we all know that this country relies solely on fuel and petroleum products. Every facet of the economy is driven by fuel and petroleum products. And therefore, the moment you set out to increase VAT on fuel and petroleum products from 8 to 16%, you essentially mean that life, the cost of living is going to skyrocket automatically. Everything in life is going to become more costly, Mr. Speaker. And then you go ahead and remove tax on aircraft, choppers, and spare parts for those funny items. Equipment that are only bought or accessed by the who is who, by the very rich in this country. On the one hand, you overburden the poor person. On the other hand, you lessen the burden on the rich person. So what logic is this, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I would have expected, having heard the regime lament that they found empty coffers, I would have expected, and any first-year economics student will tell you, that the logical step the regime should have taken was rationalize the budget, and cut off those areas that are not necessary. But what do you see? The budget has now increased by about 80-something billion shillings, over and above last year's budget. But the increment is driven by consumption. You see the money allocated to the office of the president, the money allocated to the office of the deputy president, the money allocated to the office of the Prime's cabinet, whatever. Monies that are going to service consumption, to host banquets, to buy flowers, to buy tea, Mr. Speaker. This is a perfect case of a regime which is living on a different universe, not on earth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you can go on and on. Take the case of the housing levy. Up to now, including, and I let it very kill it, my good friend, Honorable Kimani Kuria. Up to now, they have refused to define what this animal is. We do not know whether it is a levy, it's a tax, it is a fine, it's a penalty. Nobody knows, Mr. Speaker. And then they come here and want to tell us that they have reduced it from 3% to 1.5%. Mr. Speaker, they have even worsened the situation now. The situation has now worsened because the cap which was there initially of 2,500 has been removed. Now they have targeted even those who are earning bigger salaries more. Now they have attacked the low person, the middle person, and the higher person. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you, in the village where I come from, we have got public servants. We have got employees who have toiled for years. Some of them are left with about 5 years to retire. They have got their own houses, which they have built through different schemes. You want to tell them to part with 1.5% of their pay, Mr. Speaker, to deposit in a scheme who nobody knows the intention about. Mr. Speaker, if you did just basic calculation, this 1.5% of an ordinary primary school teacher salary, he will need not less than 200 years to be able to acquire a house. And yet this person is retiring in 5 years' time. So tell me, who is he saving for? Who is he buying this house for? Is his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, or who, Mr. Speaker? Nobody is coming up to give us answers to those very basic questions. And yet, to that poor Kenyan worker in the village, that 1.5% which you are forcing him to fork out can mean a difference between starving to death or surviving. Mr. Speaker, that poor Kenyan worker in the village, or even here in Nairobi, depends on that 1.5% of his salary to put food on the table for his children, to buy a uniform for his school for his children, to pay school fees for his children, to actually pay all the bills that he incurs in his day-to-day life, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this is one of those schemes. In fact, I would want to equate it to a pyramid scheme. Mr. Speaker, this housing levy, or whatever they call it, is a perfect case of a pyramid scheme. And Kenyans must say no. They have already said no resoundingly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you can go on and on. You can go on and on. Look at the case of poor Kenyan women and girls, and including even boys, who depend on the business of saloons, kinyozi, and what have you. What have they done to them? They have imposed an excise duty on human hair, wigs, false beards, eyebrows, eyelashes, artificial nails. Mr. Speaker, these people have a bone to pick with poor Kenyans. They don't want our women to be beautiful. They don't want our men to be well kept, Mr. Speaker. They are basically strangulating every other poor Kenyan who is struggling. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, those saloons, those kinyozis employ hundreds of thousands of Kenyans. Hundreds of thousands of Kenyans are employed and depend on those kinyozis, those saloons. If you come out and impose such taxes, you are essentially telling them to go back to and engage in other nefarious activities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you cannot be on one hand condemning alcoholism and drugs and so on and so forth, and on the other hand, you are removing people from gainful employment and throwing them to the wilderness. What a contradiction is that, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, this bill, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, as we sit here today, and as we debate in this very magnificent chamber, Kenyans are watching out there. In fact, I have received since 1 hour ago, not less than 200 messages from Kenyans who are watching us. It is therefore incumbent upon us to choose where we want to stand. Do we want to stand on the right side of history or on the wrong side of history as a house? Because Kenyans are watching. Do you want to side with the oppressors who have brought this bill, or do you want to stand with the poor Kenyans? The choice is ours. At the end of the day, it will be neither the issue of Kenya Kwanza or Azimio. It will be the issue of what position did a leader take at the hour of need. What stand did you take at the hour of need for Kenyans? They are watching, and it will not matter whether you vote yes or no, and whether yes wins or not. What will matter is where are you standing as a leader of the people of Kenya. The Speaker, in this country, we are used to giving empty and lofty promises, and then we forget about them soon after elections. This time round, the mood I am seeing out there, and I am very often at home, Mr. Speaker, the mood out there is that this bill is a make or break point. This bill can actually spark a serious revolution in this country. This bill, I want to caution you, this bill can actually be the spark that will lead a revolution that will never be ended. And it's going to be a revolution of the proletariat, Mr. Speaker. it's going to be a revolution led by the poor hustlers, Mr. Speaker, because they have had enough. They have had enough of lies. They have had enough of this chest stamping. They have had enough of this bravado. That hour of reckoning has now come. And therefore, I want to say this. I want to say this, that even as we stand here to please our masters out there, our masters who are watching us, you must understand that the bigger, greater masters are the people who voted us, not those who imposed us on these positions. Mr. Speaker, this House cannot go down in history as a House which disregarded the plight of the people. This House must go down in history as a House which stood with the people at their hour of need. And with those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I oppose in totality. Thank you.
Ndindi Nyoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for a chance to contribute in regards to the finance bill. And of course, I rise to support. And Mr. Speaker, I would want to take this opportunity to contextualize the debate we are having and the ramifications of this debate. Mr. Speaker, we just debated our estimates, which we concluded through the Committee of Supply yesterday. Mr. Speaker, we read a budget of 3.679 trillion Kenya shillings, and that is the correct figure. We are not adding our budget by the other figures I'm hearing flying around. Our budget is actually precisely 3.67 trillion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, I want to contextualize because the work of the Finance Bill and the Finance Committee, of course, together with the Debt Committee, is to fill in the revenue side of the budget. And what we did yesterday and we have been doing is the expenditure side of the budget. Honorable Speaker, any government have only 4 areas of raising revenue. That is the ordinary revenue, the A in A, the grants, and Honorable Speaker, if we have privatization. Honorable Speaker, the current budget as it is, our revenue side, 2.57 trillion Kenya shillings is ordinary revenue. 347 billion Kenya shillings is appropriations in aid. Honorable Speaker, 42 billion is the grant. And therefore that gives a deficit, a much lower deficit from what we had last year, now at 718, 720 billion thereabout. On the expenditure side, because I want to contextualize, Honorable Speaker, 2.3 billion Kenya shillings is the expenditure of the national government, which incorporates the parliament and the judiciary. Honorable Speaker, we also budgeted for 986 billion Kenya shillings in CFS in payment of our debts and especially the interest rate. Honorable Speaker, we also budgeted for Kenya shillings 385 billion that will be sending to our counties as equitable share. Why am I giving all this detail, Honorable Speaker? This House has a choice to make. Honorable Speaker, we passed the estimates of the coming financial year. And what is it that we want to achieve? So that we contextualize and we put on the same platform on what kind of amount of money do we actually need. Honorable Speaker, whatever I have enumerated on the revenue side and the expenditure side balances. And therefore, any variation on the revenue side has to have a corresponding effect on the expenditure side. Honorable Speaker, out of the 3.679 trillion Kenya shillings, we are spending the same taxes we are collecting, the same revenue we are collecting through the finance side of the budget. Honorable Speaker, 630 billion Kenya shillings is going to the education of the Kenyan children. Honorable Speaker, through this budget, and of course being supplied by the resources from the finance bill, we have been able to add an extra 10 billion Kenya shillings to those of us who are in JSS, junior secondary schools, Honorable Speaker, to capitalize the students. Honorable Speaker, through the same revenue that we are collecting, we have been able to double our HELB allocation from this exiting year of 15 billion to 30 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, through the same revenue, we have been able to add Kenya shillings 10 billion to NGCDF, Honorable Speaker, where every constituency will be receiving 25 million to 45 million, depending on the formula, in the next financial year. Honorable Speaker, we have been able to add and actually double the amount of money we give to Public Service Commission in terms of hiring interns. Next year, Honorable Speaker, we are going to hire 8,000 interns instead of the 4,000 that we are hired this financial year. Honorable Speaker, we have been able to allocate 249 billion Kenya shillings to our roads. We have been able to give our farmers fertilizer. The question that we must ask as this House, as we debate the finance bill, what is it that we have a problem with in terms of the expenditure? Honorable Speaker, we have to support the revenue side of the budget because, Honorable Speaker, that is where we draw the resources to be able to take our Kenya forward through infrastructure and any other kind of development that we are undertaking. Honorable Speaker, I support 100%.
Thank you, Ndindi Nyoro. The Honorable Masara. Give Honorable Masara the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me this opportunity